Welcome back, dweebs, to a special edition, a newer project here on the channel, Indie Digs, where we are going to dive deeply into some of our favorite and recently released indie films. I've got with me a dear friend of mine and somebody we've talked to in the past, but maybe a newer face to this channel. Noah, an independent filmmaker in his own right. And so we're very happy to have you here, brother. I'm so excited to talk more with you about a bunch of other films. So stay tuned. We will be discussing some of our future plans together as well. But today, Indie Digs on Jimmy and Stiggs. And this is a movie that I went into blindly because Noah here reached out to me and said, "Hey, there's a Joe Begos film. Would you like to watch it?" And my immediate response was yes, because I knew that I have enjoyed his style previously. And I think that's maybe where we start. That's what we'll be reviewing today, Noah. We watched VFW together. First and foremost, welcome. But so going into this, like, what were your thoughts? And I guess set the table for us as far as your experience with Joe Begos previously.
Well, I mean, he's very eccentric and rebellious. So I try to stay away from, the trailers, like the main trailers, and I just saw like these neon blood-soaked teasers on Instagram and, just like really quick spots. And I knew, obviously, we know his background, and I think I've seen like 3 or 4 of like half of his. This is his 6th film, Jimmy and Stiggs, and I knew that it would be experimental and crazy, which I welcome with open arms. This movie is there's so much to talk about from just an audience perspective, and also a creator, and also how it's about just building up, because this feels like this is his movie to kind of, like it's like his crossroads. It's his Bone Thugs and Harmony at the Crossroads movie is what it is, because Eli Roth and the horror section with his new thing, things are happening. You can clearly tell that he is on the radar of the horror community or just the experimental world.
Yeah, I love the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
That's gonna be stuck in my head
Tell me what you're gonna do.
all day. So yes, just to add to that a little bit, VFWs to this day is still the only Joe Begos film that I have seen. I believe Bliss is also well regarded. I think that's one that you've seen, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, Bliss, Christmas, Bloody Christmas, the psychotic robotic Santa Christmas killing movie, which is crazy, and then I saw the Mind's Eye. It's he did Almost Human. That was, I think, his first one, and then the Mind's Eye, or I can't remember, his second film, and then he did Bliss, and then VFW. Then maybe I've seen mostly all of them. I think maybe I missed like 1 or 2. I don't know, because he has, like I said, 6. So.
And to help those out who might be trying to get an idea, because we will be going into full spoilers at a certain point. We will warn you ahead of time. But when we talk about how you had reached out to me and I just on vibes knew that I would want to go watch this film, help me explain that aesthetic. I kind of equate it to like a late 80s, early 90s, lots of neon,
Yeah.
lots of synthetic sounds in all of that stuff. So gritty would be another, maybe some over the top visual effects, practical effects usually at that. Anything that I'm missing, is that, how else would you describe to somebody who's never seen a Begos film, if they want to understand, like, would these be the types of films I'd be into?
Yeah, I mean, if you are a enthusiast for like one person, it's mostly one person centric performative independent films. I would say that you would like. But then again, it's like it's so like senses overload, wild violence, wild fucker, like so it's not like I just want to start out with the positive first. Like obviously, like I commend. I'm so pro. Go out and do your movie. And this thing started during the pandemic and the COVID, and he did it in his own apartment. And it's his apartment still. Like, and he's
Yeah.
kept it the way it is, and we know that because there was a cool behind the scenes, which we'll get to later, but at the end of the movie, which honestly made the movie much more enjoyable for me because that's kind of as a filmmaker myself and independent DIY shit. I like to know what they went through, what he went through, doing something. So the movie, I feel like it is, like you said, late 80s, early 90s. Like, I'm sure there's going to be a VHS limited edition because it would have kick ass cover art. And it does seem like a movie that, a kid would like try to beg their parents to watch late at night and get a pizza and maybe invite friends. It does seem like this movie would have been so well received way back in the day.
Yeah,
Like
it certainly got that
the bad
midnight
taste,
that
like Peter
midnight
Jackson.
madness sort of, which I believe is where Almost Human debuted in certain festivals, where it was like your midnight horror flick. There's that, like I said, that over the top. It's got some hobo with a shotgun vibes, when you think about VFW. And like I said, I've only seen the one, so that's where I was double checking on the general aesthetic of his films. But it does seem that is part of the theme. And so let's get into it. Let's dig in to
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy and Stiggs. I will read the summary for you. Here's our little one liner. So, a shitstorm of bad news sends out of work filmmaker Jimmy Lang spiraling into an out of control bender during which he claims to have been abducted by aliens. Fearing they'll come back, he contacts his old friend Stiggs to help him gear up for war. When the sun sets, the duo are thrown into a hallucinatory explosion of aliens, drugs, booze,
And fuck
and
you,
all out carnage. Yes, and fuck you, cocksuckers. A lot of
piece of
those
shit.
piece of shit.
Oh, you like that, huh? You
um,
like how that feels?
Boom. So yes, generally speaking, and now it's all spoiler territory from here on. I think it'll be pretty difficult for us to talk about it without the spoilers. So you've been warned. Final warning. I will even put it up on the screen, and here we go. An 80-minute film, Noah.
Wow,
This
80
one,
minutes. Okay,
yeah, 80
it
minutes.
felt longer, but that was just because it was a little too much catching with the fries of just powering you down. Like,
100%. Yeah. So that is sort of where we can really start with it. We have the first person point of view intro for a little bit. We set the table, and then it is a more standard structure of the set, which is the apartment. And then we do get some first person stuff at the end. But yeah, broad strokes, guys, this is an action movie, a very gory alien action movie, mainly featuring two folks. And Joe Begos, the writer director, is the lead. And so we spend almost all of the time with him and his thought process. So yeah, I'll just pass it back to you. You mentioned the ketchup on the fries. I do think that yeah, this is one that it's got a lot of that style. It's got a lot of sizzle. What did you think about the steak, or what did you think about the sizzle? Because incredibly,
what
in,
steak?
in,
No, just kidding. Another
I
one
was saying,
steak.
incredibly difficult things were accomplished. Like we will eventually
Yeah,
talk behind the scenes. So the rig that was used, all of the stuff, like a ton of work was put into this, and you can absolutely see it. But
yeah.
was it too much sizzle, not enough steak, it sounds like. But just generally speaking, what are your thoughts on this? I guess we'll stick with the likes, and then inevitably we'll talk
Yeah.
about the dislikes as well. But Jimmy and Stiggs, what's your first take on this as we dive in?
Um, I so like the good is I love when a movie just like can put you in the world and you're like there. So like immediately, even if you don't agree with it, you can be like, okay, this is their aesthetic and this is the vision, and say what you want about Joe, and a lot of people do critique him, but this is, you can tell this is his baby and a passion project, and it is, I mean, the dedication is just undeniable. Like you know, yes, we have qualms about. We'll get into it, but like the good, right off the bat, the good is like it. To me, it feels like a, like a neon, like crazy video game. It starts out, the opening scene is first person, so I will admit that I was a little worried that the whole movie would be that. So I'm glad that it did kind of jump around. You know, it I don't even know. Like there was some, like you said last night, there were some Dutch angles. There was some really unique camera work. A lot, and in fact, I'll have to watch it again, which I do want to watch it and possibly own it on Blu-ray. But like, I could have sworn that I saw the rigs and some of the things, because it's like it's impossible how close up. I mean, they were like NFL gridiron fucking close, like old school. Like they had the camera like right on them, especially when Jimmy and Stiggs were arguing in the beginning when he first showed up. Um, it was very, and I understand why they went for it, like the you know claustrophobic kind of, you're stuck in there with them, and but also it was a very like, I don't know that. So like the good, I'll shut up here in a second. The good is the design, the one location, the okay, I'm just gonna make this movie with barely any money. I don't even know what the budget is of this movie, but you can tell that this dude just wanted to make something unique, inherently unique, and I think he accomplished that. Again, the story's a different thing. We'll get into that. But visually, I think visually, aesthetically, and also I had to give props. The music, the soundtrack is fucking cool because it's not just boneheaded, boring. I would actually love to hear this movie or listen to it isolated soundtrack, like if they did that on the Blu-ray or DVD, because there's so much going on with sound design too that it's just really, again, it's like an overload for the senses. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it really is, and I agree, and longtime dweeb viewers will know that sound engineering, the sound design on top of the score is always a big factor when we're talking about movies or any project really, and I agree with you there. I
Mm,
enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was well done. The soundtrack, right up my alley. Like it's 100% the type of music that I listen to. It's the type of music that I make. Maybe just the difference being sort of what tempos are being used, really. But it was right up my alley with the space, sort of a cosmic vibe, and having that dark synthetic attributes. And the sound design I thought was really good. The fact that it was all practical. You know, obviously with the aliens, it has its moments where it's kind of clearly a puppet of some kind. But I don't. That part didn't distract me from the movie because I felt like it was that type of movie, right? We talk about like an after midnight type of. I hate to use the word schlocky, but it's got some extra cheese on it, right? Like you're not. It doesn't, it didn't break my immersion to see the lunging alien kind of just look
mm.
like a flat doll flying
Yeah.
forward. I was more by the fact that, oh, hey, they use this simple Amazon build your own hand thing to have the alien fingers come up from over like that. So I'm more impressed by that than I am like, oh, this ruined it for me. So I did agree that visually I thought it was appealing. A lot, the set was very intricate, and so it makes sense that he lived in it for so long because otherwise, it would be tough to get that kind of detail and keep continuity because there are, you know, green and black and blue lights everywhere. There's glow in the dark stuff. There's hundreds of liquor bottles, all kinds of stuff that really went into it. And so I
I mean, yeah,
certainly all
yeah,
of that stuff.
they had to establish that Jimmy was drinking. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't get that, he wanted to drink a lot and do drugs. So,
He was
I
an
mean,
alcoholic, and that, and
yeah,
we will certainly, as we get into it, talk about some of the plot points, the subplot
mhm.
points, and how they were introduced, whether or not they were resolved. But that is certainly one. And so, yeah, and then so the last part, I do want to get into a little bit of behind the scenes because I think you'll agree with me on this. As you, I should say, maybe I agree with you on this because you've done more to carry this type of tale than I actually have. But you and I both, I think, are incapable of removing the known constraints of independent filmmaking when we review a movie like this. So, for instance, The Battery, probably the movie that got this whole journey, this whole discussion started for us, is a movie that once you know it cost $6 grand to make, if you know anything about filmmaking, I can't understand how your appreciation of that movie doesn't grow exponentially when you
yeah,
find out what the budget is. So when I say that, I lead that into here. This was a COVID movie
yeah,
that started out in part as a byproduct of that era and not being able to
yeah,
do your typical filmmaking stuff. So let's film something at home. Again, you also made essentially a COVID movie. You made a film during the COVID era,
hmm,
and utilized some of the I don't know if I want to call them perks, but you worked with what you had in that regard. And so Joe did a similar thing. He worked on this movie for 4 years in his apartment. Uh, a lot of it by himself, and clearly based on the letterbox reviews, a lot of people came by the apartment and either
yeah,
helped out or watched screenings there. So
yeah.
it almost
Which,
became this little museum thing. So I say all that to say, like, we appreciate that, maybe I will say for me, probably above all else. So as we
yeah,
get into the issues with it, keep in mind that this is an incredible accomplishment.
hmm,
First and foremost, the fact that this was done the way that it at least had its moments of looking like a true to form, higher budget movie than I'm sure that it had. A lot of practical effects, a lot of effort, a lot of elbow grease. So I'll hand it off to you again, just because you
yeah,
have done the work. Did I represent your point of view accurately? I guess I should ask. Do you feel the
yeah.
same way about this type of film being made and your appreciation for it?
Well, I completely agree with all most of your points. Is like like last night when we watched it, I felt like I couldn't be mad at the movie when I wanted to be because it came from such a place that I'm all about, where I love like what it is, like what how he did this. It's not like he, you know, wrote a script because and then sold it off and made millions and then this was because I've been in that mindset of like I need to be artistic and just do my shit. And then here's the body, here's the aesthetic, here's what I'm going to go for. Because he had to like take a lot of time to like really think this through. You don't just like willy nilly stick your hand in the, like I'm just going to make this movie and the next day you do it. Like there had to be thought and setup to this. There was that's so again all the respect in the world um for him because we are big marks for this director, big fucking marks. And also you mentioned The Battery. He's worked multiple times with Jeremy Gardner, Joe Begos or Begos, I don't remember how you pronounce it, but he's worked a lot with Jeremy Gardner, who is the writer director and star of The Battery, co-director with Christian Stella. So like we come from this place like okay, let's just be real. Like when we saw this movie, like this is a movie for diehard like nerds or experimental because there were only two other people in the theater with us. Like so, we're there because we appreciate this. We can we can blind trust fall into a director's movie like this because we know that he'll take chances and be different and fun. And obviously, like a lot of reviews in this movie, Jimmy and Stiggs, like, you know, they're like, oh, this is his wildest ride yet, his most ambitious, and you can't disagree with that. However, there are things that they could have. However, there are things that they could have done, especially in post of like, okay, around the 99th time that I say what the fuck, maybe is that a little too much? Is that, you know, look at it like I look at like the dialogue of this movie like like he's the little kid in the kitchen with the mom just tugging at her fucking apron. And it's like, okay, you just keep doing it. You're going to get your fucking Lunchable. You're going to get it. Just shut up. Here's your Capri Sun or your Hawaiian Punch, and your dad's going to get home. Hope he doesn't beat you. You know what I mean?
It is, and I think with that, it is a good time for us to transition into the story elements, because for all of the technical appreciation that we have for the visuals and the aesthetic, we can't really talk about any of the I guess nitpicks or issues without talking about the story itself, because it's the two sort of go hand in hand. Because I think when you see what was accomplished visually, you're sort of just like, man, there's something missing in the story of it all. And you touched on it just now with the dialogue. It's an interesting take to have this over the top alien sci-fi concept, but then you have what I guess some would argue as some very gritty, real dialogue, because it's just, to be fair, what a real human being, especially a drunk one on cocaine, likely would act the way that Jimmy acts, just like saying shit and fuck 100
Yeah.
times and calling the little aliens cocksuckers and be like, I'm gonna get you, motherfucker. I'm gonna get, like,
You
he is
like
very
that?
much, he's very much like Act 3 Tony Montana. Fair, you know, that's
Yeah.
accurate. However, we're not in the most realistic setting anyway. So for me, it would be okay to deviate, maybe do a little bit more with the story beats, especially when the crux of this whole concept outside of the aliens is that this is a battered friendship. Like the whole thing is like these two are no longer friends, and they have to be sort of forced into this reconnection based on what might be nervous breakdown from Jimmy, or some kind of drug fueled hallucination, or
Yeah.
maybe it's aliens. So I think, you know, there were opportunities with the story where a few little tweaks here and there I think would have done a lot for this. There are not only the relationship between the two of them, but we have a setup that doesn't really get paid off with Jimmy's girlfriend. I
Mm-hmm.
really thought it would have been beneficial to have her come back at some point, if for nothing else, just to give us another character to be involved. And also, you know, it raises the stakes. Yeah, it's, and now
Yeah.
it's Jimmy's got his ex-girlfriend into all this mess, right? You know, maybe it's a little cliche, but as we've discussed before, tropes and cliches exist because they produce, they work in stories. So if it's done a lot of times, usually it's because it's effective. And I do think this movie could have benefited from a change in energy at times. So back to you on that story parts. What were your thoughts on the way things were set up? Would you have liked to have seen maybe the movie slow down for a beat and let Jimmy and
Yeah.
Stiggs talk more about their relationship, or were you satisfied with the they live the they live homage, where they fought for a very long time? I don't know how many minutes. I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but they fought for a good 5, 6, maybe 8 minutes. They had that knock them down, drag them out. What were your thoughts on the story of it, and where would you have maybe tweaked anything if you would have?
Well, I feel like this movie was like the equivalent, like, of just if I went into a store, like a grocery store, and just started screaming, just out with no context, like just "Ah!" And it's just like, but isn't it more intriguing when somebody has a meltdown that slowly builds? And I feel like right off the bat, he was doing lines of coke, drinking, getting fucked up. And yes, that's a quick primer to be like, he's fucked up. But I feel like it could have been a little more subtle because you didn't need, because really when he was like all fucked up with the drugs and the drinking, he didn't really slur his words. There wasn't like any moment of like, wow, he's drinking so much and he's so fucked up. But this is actually somewhat of a character within the movie because it's modifying his behavior. Like he as much as he drank as much of the drugs, I don't think I'd be saying what the fuck motherfucker cocksucker perfectly the way he did. His speech pattern, Joe's speech pattern, Jimmy's speech pattern never changed in the movie, really. Not that I knew. Like there wasn't a time where it's like, okay, yes, he's taking all this punishment, getting fucked up, slushed blood cut everywhere, and then the ending is, of course, way over the top ridiculous. And you could be like, well, he's fucked up. See, man, that's why it works, bro, because he's fucked up. But it's like, but I feel like there could have been more effort. I guess my biggest thing about this movie is it's such, again, like I said, a passion project, a baby, showing versions to friends and people, literally using that apartment as a fucking museum. Because I saw online before I saw the movie, like, oh, hey, you can come see it. And I was confused. I was like, wait a second, this movie isn't even out yet. And there's like set pieces somewhere that people are going to see. No, it's his fucking apartment. So it's like, if this is your world where it's your plane of existence, then you should think about certain things that you could have done, because again they abandoned. There's no resolution with Jimmy and Stiggs, bottom line, and that's the title of the movie. We talked about the battery alert. I'm not going to give a spoiler if nobody's seen it, but like there is an inherent relationship there, a two-person situation, and there is resolution, whether you like it or not, but there is resolution. And I feel like with Jimmy and Stiggs are just like, okay, fuck you, we're cool.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that is probably where it was lacking the most, is in the Jimmy and Stiggs dynamic. I think you articulated it well. There wasn't enough Stiggs in Jimmy and Stiggs, and not to say, not in a sense of screen time, but in a sense of the character development was a little rushed. I think there were some great opportunities, and so much of this, as you mentioned, a passion project. We got to see some behind the scenes stuff after the credits, which was probably the coolest part of the whole
Mm-hmm.
movie. And
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll touch on that more. But Joe Begos himself, that's how I even thought to make the comparison of Jimmy and Stiggs fighting as They Live, because it was Joe himself who said that in the behind the scenes. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we had the They Live fight. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he is out here doing homages to things. And when we talk about the setup that they gave us of alcohol being a deterrent, alcohol being what can break you free from the spell of the aliens, and that they have an adverse, even physical reaction to it based on what we understand, that the alcohol itself is damaging to them. So you have this concept, Stiggs, who's been sober for 6 months. I think it would have been much more effective if he had been sober for longer than that also.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think,
You could have changed the time.
yeah, he could have been sober for a couple years,
I was
maybe.
for 4 fucking years, a presidential term, bitch.
And it would have,
Shut up.
yeah, and it would have lent itself to the story, right? Like, oh, we've grown apart over the years, and now I haven't heard from you in months because I've tried to be your friend as a sober person, and I can't be around you because you refuse to be sober. Which is what they said. Like, that's part of the dialogue, but it doesn't make sense as much as like, well, you've been sober for 6 months, and you already and there's all of this. It just seems like it could have been extended a little bit, and
Yeah.
that would have added more weight to it. And conversely, or on the other end of the same spectrum, when it comes time, when Jimmy gets abducted, I think the second time, but the first time, because he gets abducted, I think about 4 times really. So there's the night by himself. There, 2 is the first time he is separated from Jimmy. 3 is the time he's been separated, or sorry, from Stiggs. 3 is the time Jimmy gets separated from Stiggs for a very long time, like hours, and Stiggs has killed a whole room full of aliens, and you're like, oh, is Stiggs an alien? I don't know. And then 4 is the climax scene. We'll talk about that when we talk about it. But so you have this moment, right? Jimmy comes back. He's been gone. Stiggs all of a sudden has gone Rambo mode, and he can kill all these aliens. But you've included this suspicion. Jimmy doesn't trust that. And he's like, is this guy
Yeah.
an alien? Well,
Where
you
were
got to fucking
you?
drink, Stiggs. You got to drink to prove
Yeah.
that you're not an alien. And
Mm.
I think Stiggs caved pretty quickly. That was another one. Like, to me, that's your opportunity to be Alfred Hitchcock. That's your opportunity
Yeah, they could have
to
built that. They could have built
stretch
that
that
big.
out, build that out. And going back to the homages, that is your hot wire blood scene from The Thing, except
Hmm.
there's only one person. But again, like, that was your opportunity to do something. And then, because of course you also have the end of The Thing with Childs, and where there's liquor bottle involved. Like, you really could have done something cool. And I honestly would have loved to even have heard that one note, dum dum, like from The Thing. Like, you could have done an audio sort of homage as well, and it would have been like, anybody who didn't catch it wouldn't have missed it. It just would have felt like a cool tense moment of, is this guy really a fucking alien? Like, has Stiggs been abducted already, or what's going on here? But it
Yeah.
just seemed like it was over pretty quickly, and then immediately Stiggs falls off the wagon too, and so he's immediately into, like, hoofing a bunch of rails and doing stuff where, again, I thought that could have been more gradual and also used to build up what I thought should have been there, which is any of this real subplot, which it's there, but I don't think it's pointed at enough. And I'm usually the guy saying don't point at it. But I think maybe subliminally there could have just been more to do to build that up and stretch it out to have it just be more impactful. And that way, when Stiggs dies, we really feel it. And like you said, there was no resolution. It's just, oh,
No.
he did get abducted by aliens. They even have the whole police interrogation footage that doesn't get paid off because
Which
the
was the
way.
coolest storylines spread, because it was like, okay, well, is this time travel? Did the aliens know anything they can predict, or they just mind game? Because they were going back and forth in their assortment or assault of just motherfucker, you're pussy. Like, there were moments of like, this is really interesting. This could go somewhere really cool, because it showed like, no, I would never kill you. You're my best friend. Like, you're my buddy. Well, you're fucking crazy. But they just completely abandoned that. And I just said something, or I mean, I just thought something that I haven't seen any. But I think the biggest problem storyline wise with this film is that when these one location centric films happen and you're stuck, right? And every great classic film is like, you could call it, I can't remember this like professor, and he did like a whole documentary series that's on Max, and I watched it. It's like, the power of film or what, I can't remember, but he said you could really take any classic film that's beloved and rename it Trapped, because every movie is about, I'm trapped, how to figure out how to do this, how to get out. Alien, Back to the Future, like Jaws, I'm trapped, how can we fix this? And I feel like Jimmy and Stiggs had an amazing, the brick walls everywhere. That was cool. The visual, that reminded me like early 90s, like grind different. This is cool. Such a ambitious and simplistic way to do it. To be like, you're stuck. You can't go anywhere. You don't even have to explain why the aliens or how they could do it or whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. But the biggest problem with this whole thing is that I didn't feel for one fucking second that Jimmy and or Stiggs wanted to get the fuck out to enjoy life. It was more of like, why should I care if they die? Because they're really just here to be cool and fight. And it felt like, oh, this is like a video game where it's like wave 1, wave 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, wave 8. And it's like, well, okay, you abandoned the girlfriend thing, you abandoned the cop thing. So everything that was possibly very intriguing that happened outside those doors of the apartment, you just said, fuck you, man. Fuck that shit. And it was like, well, so what you want us to love is something that you're doing literally every waking second of the fucking movie. Am I right or am I right? Right.
Yeah, I think you're right, and there has been, we're not the only ones with that feedback. I've
Mhm.
seen people say that because it stayed so long in that sort of aesthetic, in that pace, that it
Yeah,
actually makes the 80-minute movie feel longer. And I think you
it
touched
does.
on that earlier in our recording that, yeah, it could have used some changing in pace that would have maybe allowed us to uh, get back on board when things sped back up. It was a
Yeah.
lot of, and there, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it felt like a lot of this plot was an and then plot instead of a
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
happened because.
It was a dude, where's my car? And then I'm gonna kill some alien puppets. And then more are gonna come in and kill me, and then I'm gonna kill and then I'm gonna say motherfucker and fuck you, cocksucker. Do you like that? And then and it's just like it really is like that. And it's
It's
just
yeah.
yeah.
It
So
is tough, and there was where man, there was one other aspect of it that I think could have been touched on, but it has just escaped me. So, what else did you have to say about it, sir?
um so I just have to say, like, if we're getting down to the end, because then we're gonna like parlay into like some reviews and like behind the scenes. I just want to say, like, when you really do have a movie that relies on the aesthetic and you do appreciate it and you do come from the background where you appreciate indie film, and there was one review that the guy was dogging the movie, but he gave it like 2 stars on Letterbox, but he said, but I think that it's important that we have still passionate, independent, crazy cinema like this, and I agree. Like, hey, that dude who knows where the fuck that Begos dude will go, Joe will go after this. Who knows? What can you do? Like, he's not gonna do a fucking procedural medical drama after this. There's no way. Like, you either have to go bigger or like really completely abandon the genre. And I don't think that dude's going to, because it seems like that dude is so obviously, if Eli Roth puts him on the horror section, the new label, they this, which again, really quick, like, and again, getting to like the trailers, a lot of people are like, well, I would have rather see don't go home, don't go in the house, bitch, more than this, like, or the piano killer. Like, those trailers were fucking amazing. And when we were getting into the movie, I was excited because I was like, oh, this is like Grindhouse old days. This is fun. And then you're like, okay. And I don't know, man. And I just come from a place of like a personal story really quickly for people who don't know. This dude, Kevin, he saved me because I came from the school and thought, well, that's just going to be really fucking cool if it happens. And I was making a movie. It's called Lonely Legend. It's about to come out in October. And I called him from Arizona in a deserted town, and there was a fucking table and a 25-foot ladder, no joke. And I called him, and it was, I think, a part of me, because I am fearless. Like, I've been knocked out. I've been, he's seen me take beatings. I'm crazy. I like, just like Joe got cracked ribs and went nuts, but he stopped me from jumping off of a ladder onto a table onto a stuffed fucking bear. And and he was like, well, what does this serve? And I said, well, it's cool because, like, somebody's planting the bear there. Instead of just going, what the fuck, I just go, okay, well, I'm going to play mind games and get on top of that ladder and jump off in an elbow drop. And he's like, well, what happens when you hit? I don't know. It's just going to look cool if it gets caught. And it's like that. And I feel like that's what Jimmy and Stiggs is, well, it just looks badass, so who cares? And when you have that aspect, like, why don't you just make it look badass, which he did? But then you could have patched. I feel like everybody who watched this movie of his, especially if you're like, almost kind of mind fucked by going in that apartment of his and watching it, like, you're not going to criticize it because he's like, but bro, this is my whole life, dog. Like, you're going to criticize this movie before it comes out. Listen, Eli Roth picked it up. And it's my world, bro. So, like, yeah, I said, what the fuck? But it's cool, dude. Like, it's like that. It's like if you're in elementary school way back in the day and somebody brought in Reebok pumps. And if you critique them, if they keep pumping, they're like, isn't that cool? They would look at you like you're lame to not keep appreciating how fucking cool they are. And it's like, hey, bro, I appreciate how cool you are. It's just, come on, man. Like, there was no desire to, like, okay, he's a failed filmmaker, right? Like, I just want to touch upon one thing.
Yeah.
He's a failed filmmaker, and that part where Stiggs was like, nobody wants to fucking be around you. Well, that was like, we're going somewhere where it's relatable. But again, like you said earlier, the 6 months of Stiggs being clean and he was better or changed up his life more than Jimmy did. But you could have made that like 6 months, like, and he's like this holder that now like everybody's abandoned you. Why did you could have made that a presidential term, dog? You could have said that it was 4 years, 5 years, and nobody talks to you. I mean, why was it so short? I don't know. I feel like they had so many things. I feel like the biggest problem is, okay, they hit it down with the visuals. You're cool. You wanted it to look cool. You made it look cool. But you were so concerned with Jimmy and Stiggs both sounding like the hardest ass hard asses of all time. Just show some humanity. Show us why you're upset that these little aliens are coming in to take you out and ruin the whole world. Because I don't feel it. I feel like you wanted this to happen. So they're like, let's go. Let's kill these motherfuckers. And it's like, okay, well, this isn't like Home Alone. Like Kevin McAllister, like, I love this shit. I'm going to have my macaroni and cheese and enjoy this shit with my milk and then fuck these dudes up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's, the motivation remained unclear for the aliens. They have, again, like
Yeah.
the seeds were planted and then they just weren't cultivated, because they have this whole montage where Jimmy's recording his thoughts at the very beginning, sort of previously on, where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm recording my own thoughts as a reason to give this exposition, which is fine. It worked. And again, considering the concept of it just being one dude in his apartment, like, I'm fine with that. Those are kind of things where it's like, all right, like, would I prefer not to have that stuff? Sure, but I'm not gonna kill the movie for it.
Right.
But they do things like he mentions how he and Stiggs watched this documentary when they were kids, and it talked about the same alien shit that was going on now. Like, pay that off. Tell
Yeah.
me why are Jimmy and Stiggs, are they being targeted by this simply because they watched a documentary when they were 8? Like, that
Yeah.
is a potentially cool plot thread. You could have
Yeah.
tug on that. Tell me what's going on
The
there.
abduction
Why are
scene.
these aliens here? Tease more the fact that the aliens might not be there at all, because
Yeah.
by having Stiggs pretty quickly fall off the wagon and also do the drugs, I think that's kind of implied.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there should have been more moments where everything snapped back to reality. Whoops, there goes gravity. And you just get a, holy shit, was any of that real? Or am I back still in my apartment and I've just been hallucinating? Where'd the alien blood go? Like, stuff like that, I thought would have done a lot more for it. Just these small little elements. I think what we watched was a phenomenal short film
Yes.
that needed a sprucing up. It needed a Carrie Fisher to go in there and punch the script up a little bit and say, you know what? After this beat, we're going to have these two just sit and talk. Again, in our version, they've been separated for more than a summer. And so there would be a lot to catch up on. There would be a lot of unresolved tension and potential trauma that they've caused to each other that they might be forced to discuss. Like, where's that moment before a final face off with the aliens where they have any sort of reconciliation? So that way, when Jimmy loses Stiggs, we feel it. When by the time Stiggs dies, like, Jimmy was ready to kill him himself.
Yeah.
So you get that moment when they're back in the spaceship and Jimmy sees the astronauts working on Stiggs's body. He's like, I'm gonna fucking get you, Stiggs. I don't know what they did to you, but they're not gonna do it to me. Which is like also not great motivate. Like, do you want me to root for this guy, huh? Like, that should have been more of a moment. I can't believe they did this to you, Stiggs. I'm gonna kill these bastards for you. But again, we didn't get that because of all the other opportunities that were also missed along the way to break down their bond a little bit more and maybe reconstruct it through this adversity they're facing. But they just seem like they both still hated each other the whole time. And then there was no catharsis when
Yeah.
one dies and the other one cuts himself into pieces. And
Yeah,
we
the
still have
ending.
no, and then there's no ambiguity in that ending either to make
Yeah,
us
the
think, well, did any of that
countdown.
just happen? They kind of like, yeah, it happened. And he
Yeah.
split his own skull with the chainsaw, which the logistics of that still bother me.
Yeah.
That a guy, after he cuts his first limb off, he's in shock, dude. He ain't doing the rest of that.
No. I agree. The ending was another, we're going to go back to the first person and just be cool as fuck. You remember how cool as fuck we are? Just so you know, we're cool as fuck. Like, hey, all I have to say is even Scarface slowly built up to the wildness. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, motherfucker. Like, it'd be like if Scarface started out in his office and just went nuts. Like, you know, it's just snorting lines, you know? And it's like, I feel like, okay, the astronaut, the abduction thing, like the way that they were doing that, I thought it was going to lift off into like some cool side roads. And just when you think they're going to stay there, they just pull you out of there. And you're like, okay, back to the wave 8 of alien puppet kills. And it's like, cool. Well, you know, I don't know what achievement was unlocked. I felt like it could have been, I said that last night, it could have been like a full motion video game. Like it could have been like a choose your own pathway, open up things. I mean, it still could be a video game. I mean, they're making one for Barbarian, I guess.
Oh,
So,
nice. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
reminds me of High on Life, if anybody's ever
yeah,
played
High
it.
on Life. Yeah, High on Life is a crazy game. And absolutely. And I feel like, okay, just to go to the Joe as a director or writer, as the Joe Begos dude, whatever. And after we get off of this soon, I'm going to fucking see exactly how you pronounce his name because I'm so sorry if I fucked it up. But this dude, to me, is an essential piece of indie filmmaking. I do think that we need people like him, and I think you could see in the in like the behind the scenes that Eli Roth was looking at him like a person in love with their aura. I mean, he was looking at him like, "Wow, you're living your movie. You're like it seemed like he wanted to be that. He wanted to be that indie. He wanted to be that guy with just like 6,000, 7,000 followers. And because I mean that dude is not really a well-known dude. And I'm not dissing it. Like I don't even have 2,000 followers. I'm just saying when I saw Joe, like I follow him on Instagram and he has just like believe under like 7,000 followers. So this dude is like a journey, person. Like he's rolling. He's just kind of building. And I for one am excited to see where his career goes. Like, I mean, because I've never seen a director's work. It's like where you truly don't know where he's going to go after this. I have no fucking clue. You know, who knows?
Yeah, agreed. He does with his style, he can cover a lot of range, and I will second that. I think I would rather see more Joe Begos movies than less. So this is one of
Yes.
those I've given this type of feedback before where although this one wasn't for me, I'm glad it exists. I would rather it be here than not be here, and there's enough that I appreciate about it that I would like to see it succeed. So if people do enjoy this movie, that makes me happy
Yeah.
because I want to see more creative folks making unique projects. We need more
Well,
stuff like this and less scary movie 6 in the
exactly.
world.
Well, I mean, like the whole point is like we love VFW and why? Because it is an elevated, crazy premise, but it has that camaraderie and the chemistry of the characters that you end up caring about because they do feel lived in. That's the problem. If you're going to call a movie Jimmy and Stiggs and they're like these like messed up friends, I personally didn't even feel a chemistry. I felt like they were both trying to one up each other of like, you're a pussy, I'm a pussy, fuck you. And it's like, it was just like bro talk the whole time. And like, I wanted those moments, like you said, where they were kids, like anything just to make me feel, again, it comes back to do you want to leave this apartment? Because why are you even clawing at or digging? Stiggs, we didn't even mention it, but Stiggs was, oh, I'm 6 inches. I thought that was going to be a piece. I'm 6, 7 inches in to the wall, to the brick wall, and I'm going to get out. Well, they abandoned that. Fuck that. Who cares about that? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
what's the
that's
point
true.
of even doing that? It would have felt more hopeless if you're crawling, scratching, and nothing happens. You know, oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think there should have been more Jimmy and more Stiggs. Generally speaking, I think if you are open to just going along for the ride and want to see the cool visuals, I would recommend it. I think, like you mentioned, this is one I will keep my eye out for. This one, I may own a copy of it because I'd love to see the behind the scenes. And I think, I know that we will likely each give a letterboxed score for
Mm-hmm.
this one at a certain point. But since we are running up to the movie's actual runtime with our review, I thought it might be a good time to give our final thoughts. And if you wanted to, I know there were a few different letterboxed reviews that we've
I just
shared
want to
with
read
each
one.
other behind the scenes, just to see what our
I'm gonna
thoughts
read
are
one.
on some of those. So yeah, you've got a review for us.
You
Fire
want me
away.
to, the floor is mine. All right, I'm gonna. Okay, this was made by Jonah Corey. He's a pro member of Letterboxd, so he pays for it. He's a extended user. 1 star. Watched August 15th, so yesterday. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna read the whole thing. I haven't read. Here's just the whole review. All right. All right. Fucking this fucking movie fucking was fucking so fucking cocksuckers. Fucking obnoxious. Fucking in drinks alcohol. Fucking ruins fucking any suck my dick. Fucking goodwill fucking earned. Parentheses lights up blunt. Fucking from fucking what fucking would fucking be fucking. Otherwise fucking goodwill fucking earned fucking by slash parentheses snorts cocaine, fucking otherwise fucking fun, lick my ass, effects fucking and fucking his fucking other fucking enjoyable fucking movies.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
That's it. That's
87% of the dialogue is "you motherfucking piece of shit" or "fuck you, you
yeah.
piece of shit."
And I'm going to try to like reach out to that dude and be like, I just read your whole beautiful review. And now he gave 1 star. I'm not going to go that low because again, you can't to close out my thoughts. I can't give this a 1 star or 2 star review. Like I was hovering around 2.5. Like I'm going to say just a 3, just because the amount of just passion and DIY fuckery that was involved in this. Because the way that he did some of the movements and some of the fights were really cool. Like it, there are a few moments, and again, the soundtrack I honestly may buy. I told you the vinyl just was presented. It looks great. I love the soundtrack. I may have to buy it. I love it. So, but this movie, I don't think can ever be replicated. That's why it gets a little more appreciation from me. I don't think anybody is ever going to like make a movie similar because it's so exhausting. Like, and we're away from the times unless something wild happens again, but we're locked down and we're forced to like make something or be very creative. So I don't think, knock on wood, that anything happens. I think we're out of that zone. So I really don't think there's going to be anything like this movie, if ever, again. I don't know. But for that, I had to give I'm going to give a flat 3 out of 5. And it may be a movie that goes a little lower in the future, but just from the approach, I have to just respect it somewhat.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think last night when we got out of the theater, I was leaning in that like 2.5 range, but I
Mm-hmm.
also would give this a 3 out of 5 simply because of, again, the level of difficulty.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of visually appealing stuff. Technically, there's a lot to like about this movie and a lot that I appreciate about how it was accomplished, which for me is almost it's a double-edged sword because it's all of that effort and all of that good work. While I agree with the sentiment of your one-star reviewer, I also am not as harsh in my I guess grading of it. I do agree that the dialogue took away from a lot of the stuff that I liked, but not so much to the point that I would give it a 1 star. But yeah,
Yeah,
I would love to have seen a little more effort go into the story. I guess that's the moral of my. It's like you got so much great effort over here. If we had just put a little bit more over here, this whole thing gets elevated and is something that I think could be a film that's talked about at a much larger, viewed by a much larger audience. But generally speaking, I am glad that this movie exists. I want to see more from Joe Begos, and I, for one, will be watching VFW again really soon.
me
However,
too.
it won't be the next thing that we discuss on this channel, as Noah and I are going to see Weapons
Yes,
here tomorrow as of time of recording. You may, by the time you are watching this, it may be out already. So make sure you're subscribed, have the notifications on. We will be diving deeply into Weapons on our next episode. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. Noah, thank you for joining me, sir. Do you have
thank you.
anything that you want to share with the fans? You got, I know,
Yeah,
as we've mentioned, you've got your own films in the works. I know you do a live event coverage and photography and videography, and have your own social medias and stuff. Where
yeah.
can the folks at home find you if they want more No Noah before our weapons review comes out?
Um, yeah, man. I'm at an Instagram. I'm usually mostly on Instagram for now. It's at no Noah forever. So it's KNOW, like you know me, KNOWNOAH, and then just the number four, and then EVA. So no Noah forever. Um, this has been a lot of fun. I do a lot of multi-tier stuff, making an anthology found footage film that Kevin is also involved in. So yeah, we're gonna watch Weapons and do that very soon. And by the time you get this, like you said, and that's it. Otherwise, bye bye and thank you, Kev.
Thank you, sir. And thank you guys at home. We will see you very soon, dweebs.